PodcastCoug Season 2, Episode 6.
You're listening to the PodcastCoug Radio Network with your host, James Laurie. The PodcastCoug is your weekly Coug On Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. And now, here is your host, PodcastCoug.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the PodcastCoug. I am James Laurie, your PodcastCoug, and welcome back to Season 2, Episode 6. And this is a 30-minute program on demand podcast, 30 minutes. First part of the segment, first half, we're talking about the previous game against the USC Trojans. And the second part, we're talking about the upcoming game against the Oregon Ducks. So, hey, so glad you're with us. Of course, we're on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, YouTube, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and just everywhere, really. And if you like what you hear, it's a 30-minute program. Just hit the subscribe button and it comes to your desktop or your smartphone every single week through the Cougar football season. Here we are. Well, hey, we've got a marquee win. 6 years in the Leach era, and we got it Friday night in Pullman, national TV, national stage, ESPN, the then ranked, 16-ranked Cougs pulled off the upset of a generation, stunning, of course, then the number 5 USC Trojans 30-27. That snapped the Trojans' 13-year-long winning streak. It marked the Cougs' first regular season win against a top 5 team, first time in 25 years. And it's the first home game win against SC since 2002. And guess what? The score was the same. Jason Gesser in 2002 led the Cougs, which outlasted SC 30-27, just like it was last weekend. Although the Gesser year of 2002, they needed that overtime, the OT to do it in. Still, the 2002 team ended up in the Rose Bowl, and so here we are, taking one game at a time. You can't overestimate or overemphasize the magnitude of this. Of course, we're number 11 this week in the polls. It doesn't get any better than this. You don't get moments like this often. And this is what the team, the coaches, the athletic department, they've worked so hard on the offseason to get where we're at today. And, of course, this gives Luke his first career victory over SC. It's a memorable win. You consider that Falk became our starting quarterback. The last time SC was at Martin was in 2014 after Connor Holiday suffered a broken leg in the first quarter, and Falk replaced him. And, of course, we lost, but 3 years later, Luke has prevailed. So 24 pro scouts in attendance at Martin. Falk out-dueled Darnold, completing 34 of 51 passes, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, 34 completions. And Luke passed former Oregon State quarterback Sean Mannon to claim the Pac-12 career record for pass completions with 1,211. Falk's 2 touchdowns passes also kicked up his career total to 105. That ties Oregon quarterback Marcus Mariota for the second most in Pac-12 history. All right, Darnold, by the way, meanwhile was 15-29, a season low, right, for 164 yards, 1 interception, didn't throw any TDs, although he ran a couple of TDs. And, the game was evenly played from start to finish. It had 6 lead changes, halftime, 17-17 at tie. And, the momentum changed when we recovered the fumble that was forced by Jahad Woods, who crept up and leveled Darnold with a strip sack on 2nd and 10 from the USC 25 with a little over a minute remaining in the game. It was that open hole that Jahad took advantage of, and then Derek Moore recovered the loose ball for the Cougs, and then we ran out the clock to seal the win. Amazing. It was just incredible. Despite losing middle linebacker Isaac Dotson in the first quarter to a leg injury, our defense put pressure on Darnold and the Trojans throughout the entire night. Cougs only sacked Darnold twice, Washington State's defense managed 5 quarterback hurries and held the Trojans to a season low of 327 offensive yards and 2 of 11 third down conversions. That's right. USC had 2 of 11 third down conversions. Wow. When you think about Mike Leach, you think about the air raid offense. You don't think about the Coug defense. No one in America really thinks of Washington State and defense. Well, Alex Grinch is about to change that, and it's called the Speedy D, right? Washington State beat in a stunning upset USC. We have a shot at bringing game day in November against Stanford, November 4th. It's a long shot. A lot of guys out there think that game day will never come to Pullman. It's a long shot that they'll be here in November, maybe next year, at least sometime in the future. It's going to happen. Might be 30 years, but we got a shot at it. By the way, the Stanford game is sold out. That's right, sold out for Stanford. I expect Colorado to be sold out. And regarding Sam Darnold, he probably won't go pro next year. No way, not with that performance. Now, it depends on what he does for the rest of the year. He's simply not ready. Not ready for the NFL to go pros. He throws too many picks. Personally, I think he's overrated. He needs to work on a lot of things. He's not ready for the NFL. This has improved Luke's overall draft pick. Probably first or second round. Keep winning, and Luke will be invited to the Heisman in New York. It's simple as that. Winning solves everything, right? So this was Leach's first marquee win. And we should have won by 2 or more touchdowns, really, with all those drop balls. It should have been a much higher score. The student section was full 1 hour prior to kickoff. That's unheard of. That's literally unheard of. 1 hour prior to kick, student section is completely full. Wow. You felt the energy. How significant was this win? Well, you can't underestimate that Alex Grinch is the hardest coach to prepare for. There isn't anybody out there that likes to prepare for the Cougs this year. And by the way, we don't make excuses. We make plays, right? You look at the Southern California newspapers, and they're just making excuses about their injuries or Friday night. Hey, look, we don't make and we had guys out. We've had 2 or 3 guys out for an injury, by the way, but we don't make excuses. We make plays. So Luke Falk made a statement against one of the top teams in the country his senior year. That's the reason why he came back, to prove that he belongs in the Heisman conversation. And that's a huge piece. A signature win for Luke. And from the football program, this couldn't be a bigger win. Now, this win, a huge win for the athletic department. For the football team, though, it's not the biggest game they're going to play this year. Huge hurdle that they got over, but certainly not the biggest game of the year. Personally, Oregon is huge. I mean, it's just bigger than all. It's huge. And to think we're just going to show up at Autzen and win the game, we're going to talk about that second half of the podcast Coug just in a few minutes. But again, this was a stepping stone. It's not anywhere near where we are headed. And it's not too long ago. We were having a conversation, about 13 months ago, whether this team was heading in the right direction. The team was sitting at a 0-2 start. And does Coach Leach have, this going in the right direction? And how long will this play out? Well, personally, I knew we'd be fine because of the coaches, because of who Leach is and the coaches and the talent that he's bringing in. So here we are. We're taking care of business. We're 5-0 in the conversation of what's next, and possibly competing in the Pac-12 championship. People have to remember how far this program has gone in the last 6 years. And, I've said it before, a setback is a set up. It was a setback that we had the game on Friday night, right? I mean, it literally was a setback for many people. It's tough to get over there on the west side Friday night, another late game. But you know what? It set up the perfect scenario. What happened? All morning and all day long on Saturday's ESPN game show, they showed on game day. They showed the highlights of our game all day long. The results. Guess what? The Cougs picked up. They received 2 commits and good commits. Hey, I'm in, I'm all in. And, we don't see that very often. So as mentioned, there were a lot of drop balls on Friday night, and the game wouldn't have been close if it weren't for those drop balls. 58 yards total for James Williams receiving and running. And if you had told me that we'd still win the game with Williams at a total of 58 yards, I wouldn't have believed you. But Jamal Morrow, spectacular. Oh my gosh, Jamal Morrow. Wow. How about Renard Bell? Three straight games over 100 yards receiving for Renard Bell. The crucial aspect to this air raid offense is the depth of the receivers. That's right. We have got depth, and that's really the crucial part about our air raid. You need to find guys that you can trust, find guys in the middle, and, it's all coming together for Luke. If Washington State can win on Saturday in Eugene against the Ducks, Falk would tie Jason Gesser as the winningest quarterback coach at Washington State history with 24 victories, right? So we're going to talk about the upcoming game against Oregon, the Oregon Ducks, coming up next right here on the Podcast Coug.
Hey, Coug fans. You're podcasting with James Laurie and the Podcast Coug Radio Network. The Podcast Coug is your weekly Coug on Demand show, featuring all things Cougar football in Washington State. To help you get through the week, hit the subscribe button or check us out on iTunes, the App Store, iOS, Google Play, Stitcher, or at podcastcoug.com.
Everybody, welcome back to the Podcast Coug. I am James Laurie, the Podcast Coug, and we're talking about the second half of the program. This is Oregon Ducks, Saturday, Autzen Stadium. Big game. You know what? A lot of people, they think we're just going to win. I'll tell you, I am concerned about the Ducks. I don't care if their starting quarterback is out. They've got talent. They've got great backups. They've got great depth. And we've got Taggart, head coach Willie Taggart. He's in his first year. Now, talk about Taggart. This is a name. Let's just throw this out. Anybody that goes back to 1984, Beverly Hills Cop. Remember Sergeant Taggart in Beverly Hills Cop? Wow. There we go. Next time we see the name is Willie Taggart. I don't know if that name just rings a bell. Beverly Hills Cop. Eddie Murphy, 1984. Anyway, Oregon's head coach, and it's we've got 2 in a row against Oregon. 2 in a row. How about that? Number 11 in the nation, 5-0, never 11 Cougs. We're 2-0 in Pac-12. Oregon is 4-1 and 1-1. All right, they've only lost 1 game. Are you kidding me? Saturday, 5 o'clock, of course, Autzen on Big Fox, right? You can stream it on Fox Sports Go. The line is now Oregon 2.5. We opened up the line with the Cougs, but now it's Oregon 2.5, and I'm agreeing. I mean, I'm not so confident about this game. Luke Falk, of course, he's got 16 TDs already on the season. We've got Renard Bell with 329 receptions. Jamal Morrow, 8.4 yards a carry. Hercules Mataafa, everybody's watching out for him. They're going to double up on him. Jihad Woods, he's got 1.5 sacks. The Oregon players we're going to watch out for is really their quarterback, second string quarterback that's starting now, Taylor Ali. He's 15 of 20, 115 yards. so far this season. Their main quarterback is out with the collarbone. The running back Royce Freeman, 10 touchdowns. Watch out for Freeman, the running back. And they've got Kenai Benoit, 6 TDs, and their linebacker Troy Dye at 41 tackles. Really, we're talking about. It's really an even matchup if you think about it. It's important that we come out and play Oregon just every bit as excited and focused as we did with USC. I mean, literally, we cannot just. I mean, we've got to be focused and ready to go. Otherwise, it might be a slow start again, like so many times we've seen this year, right? So we got to stop the run. Oregon's starting quarterback, like I said, Justin Herbert, is out with a broken collarbone. Regardless, the Ducks play with their less experienced Taylor Ali, but he's a great quarterback. He really is. And their freshman, the third string true freshman, Braxton Burmeister, he's excellent. I mean, they've got some really good talent, of course. So they're gonna rely. I think they're gonna rely heavily on the running game. But their quarterbacks, like I said, I think they're going to be fine. Their running backs behind Royce Freeman and Kenai Benoit. I don't know. It's going to be tough. So we got to stop the Ducks. We're going to have them start out slow. We've got to just fire up on all 4 cylinders. They've got great tailbacks. We've got to win the line of scrimmage. Hercules Mataafa, of course, on the defensive front. Hurt's got to put pressure on the Oregon line, and we've got to disrupt them. We've got to fly around and really stop their running game. And their quarterbacks. As simple as that. Mataafa's got 4.5 sacks, and Frankie Luvu has 2.5. But Oregon has only given up 5 sacks this season, tied for Arizona as the best in the Pac-12. So, however, we're second in the Pac-12 with 17 sacks on defense. So, anyway, we got to force the turnovers. Cougs defense thrives on forcing the turnovers. There you go. We've got 12 this year, 6 nationally, ranking 6th in the country. Meanwhile, Oregon has had a problem with fumbles. They fumbled 11 times this year. That's right. The Ducks have fumbled 11 times, and they've lost 6 of those. So clearly, that's their area of weakness. One that Grinch is obviously gonna exploit. And Autzen is not an easy place to win, even though we've got 2 in a row. Players, by the way, can't wait to get on the road. They just can't wait. They know it's going to be loud. Senior leaders need to step up on the team. They need to help the team with leadership and get that player readiness going with our senior leaders. On a side note, 2 players got kicked off the team this year. They're freshmen for violating Leach's rules. Team violations. We won't get into that, but I love it because it shows the rest of the teams, hey, you violate, you're out. You violate, you are out. And look at the previous coaches that we have at Washington State, which allowed some of those violations, and that just went throughout the entire team. It was kind of like just like a disease. So I love how Leach has the discipline and the strictness, and those seniors really provide that leadership, which what a lot of the young guys need. So, is there going to be a letdown? Will the Cougs show up after the huge win over SC? We're going to see. We're going to see what happens. That's the key here. So it's going to be a fun game, 5 p.m. on Big Fox. How fun is this going to be? It's just going to be exciting. Would love to be down at Autzen this year. We're not, based off of, got a lot of things. It's been a busy week trying to get this podcast out earlier this week. Just wasn't able to. But listen, it's going to be a great football game Saturday night, right? It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk to you next week. Have a great Saturday night, and go Cougs.
You've been listening to the PodcastCoug Radio Network with your host, James Laurie. The PodcastCoug is your weekly Coug on Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. This has been a presentation of the PodcastCoug Radio Network. Find us at PodcastCoug.com.